You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to Parasearch Radio, and as promised, the pop-up show. I'm your congenial host, Richard Clements, the owner of Parasearch Radio, and this is a new show we thought we'd put together. Nothing too permanent, but this show will lurk about on the fringes of our regular scheduled shows. So I'd just like to introduce all the guys who have joined us in the studio, and we have starting with Mr. Mark Manley. And how are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. Still recovering from the much hilarity that was had from our last show.
Yes, listened into that. Very interesting. Yes,
amongst many fringe theories, and I think this is my first pop-up show with you guys.
Yes, well, I think it's the first pop-up show we did have an attempt a little while ago, but this one is the real thing now, and this one will be, not regular, but it is part of the Parasearch Radio canon of shows now. So, and we'll move on, and we have the lovely girl can turn up. So we've got Kerry Greenaway instead. Hello.
Oh!
I can't believe you just said that. I'm actually offended. Hello.
Hello, how are you, dear?
Sorry that's absolutely fine. I'm fine, thank you. I'm not offended at all. I'm absolutely fine.
Yes. And no laughing during this snow or snorting.
Oh, I'll try not to snort. I can't promise a non-laughing.
And moving round the table, of course, we've got a busy studio. We've got Mr. Paul Rook. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I'm really well. And you up to much this weekend?
I'm
a busy man.
I am. I'm going out to Southend just to have a laugh on that with mates tomorrow. But that's about it.
Oh, that's about it. Oh, yes. You're off to Tops, are you?
No, they've got children, so they're going to go to Peter Pan's playground thing in Southend. So I'm going to have some.
You're going on it, really, aren't you, Paul?
I am, absolutely, just for the roller coaster, mate. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And you have fun. And, of course, no show would be complete without the dark, sinister forces of Mr. Andy Mercer. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Yes, I am here as well. I'm sort of just lurking in the background like you usually do. The occasional sarcastic comment will probably come from me, but other than that, I'll just sit back and enjoy.
Oh, okay. I was trying to think of what to actually do, and I thought I'd try and open this up to the actual chat room. We do have a Kayla in the chat room, and I was wondering if she has a question for us all in general, and if she would like to actually bring up a topic, anything you would like, and we can see if we can talk about it. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see you're in the chat room, okay, and if you can put a question in for us, and we'd be more than happy to share our thoughts.
Poor
Just
Akala,
don't
put her on the
talk about
spot.
Hollow Earth.
Why not? Why not? Poor girl. Poor girl. Well, she's, and we like to.
Oh,
no.
I knew someone was going to do that to me tonight.
Yes.
Oh,
The
I
free will.
hate you. I hate you all.
It just had to be done, you know.
I knew you were going to do this to me tonight. I have actually been thinking about this today.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So I basically last night we did a show on Paramania, and the question of free will came up, and I said that we don't have free will, and everyone was like, "Oh, yes, we do," and all this. But Andy actually said, "You do." Well, you did. You said you do have free will, but you are constrained by life, basically, and choice, and your moral background, and your belief systems. Yes.
I said free will is a myth.
Yeah.
I did say that to the reverse. Free will is something. The illusion of free will is something that we believe we have, or rather, we believe we have it, but is an illusion because we are driven by subconscious motivation and drives that you cannot escape from, and you're not always consciously aware. And more often than not, you're not consciously aware of these things that are driving you. So the illusion is that you have free will to choose easily, if you like, or have multiple choices, but in fact you are driven more by your subconscious drives, desires, aversions and motivations than you would necessarily recognise. So your giver creates the idea you have free will, but in actual fact it is quite limited. But then, having said that, you do have free choice of actions. Now, you can actually choose to do something. Like, as we were discussing before, you were saying last night about the idea of you lounging on the beach with your kids and having no problems, having a great time. That you don't have free will to do that. Well, you do. There are actions you can carry out that would enable you to be able to do that. Mostly illegal ones, i.e. robbing a bank, etc. But you could acquire the money somehow. If you owned your house, you could have sold the place and go off to live on the beach. You can do these things. Free will doesn't stop you doing those things. You can do them. But we don't do things because of consequences. I.e., as I say, if you want to get the money of robbing the bank, the chances are you're going to get caught and stopped. You may also object to it on personal moral grounds that you find out it's unethical to steal money from others. But you have the choice to do that. You have the freedom to do anything you choose. You're limited mainly by social and moral and legal constraints. Now that's, of course, within the realms of what you can actually do. As we were saying before, you can't walk to the moon. You don't have free will, have no place, no path, the idea of walking to the moon, because you simply cannot do that. It is impossible. So to summarise, we have the illusion of free will, but it depends how you want to define that free will. It's down to a level of personal choice, because the forces that drive us are in our subconscious, and we can address and deal with and act upon those, or act against those forces, or try to free ourselves from those forces, because that's what us therapists do, is help you become free of those subconscious drivers that are making you do things you'd rather not do. I mean, many people will say they smoke cigarettes, but still rather they didn't, but still find they're still doing it. It is still their free choice to do it, but it is a difficult force within them that's making them want to continue smoking. And obviously there are ways of dealing with that. So free will exists, but it's illusionary in the sense it's not what it appears to be.
Yes, and that's kind of the conclusion I came to today.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did come down to it's about choice. Free will is about choice, because you can pretty much, like you say, I mean, the analogy I used was incorrect. I will admit that. I completely hold my hands up to that. It was completely incorrect. But I was on the spot. It was late at night. I'm going to have excuses coming out now. But
Here we go.
You've got to think on your feet sometimes, and sometimes your feet slip from under you. I mean that quite
exactly.
seriously.
However, I did think about this today because I had a funny old feeling that Mr. Rook was going to bring this to said table tonight. And I did think about this, and I did think about what is free will and what can you do. And I do think that you can make choices within your circumstance, like you've said, exactly what you've said. And so, so I have thought about that. I do go away and think about things occasionally. And I do admit that last night's analogy was not the best analogy that I could have used.
It's just, it was a different kind of scenario that didn't really fit the criteria of whether or not it was free will. That was all. Inherently nothing particularly wrong with it. It's just, That didn't make any sense, basically. Anka's got a question if you want to answer it, guys. She's asking, what was the most shocking experience you've had within the paranormal? Shocking in terms of scary or like, bloody hell, what was that?
Yeah, I think we can take that as your most sort of, scary, frightening, or sort of mysterious, or something that, that's actually surprised you whilst out investigating. Who would like to take up that? Let's go to the sort of paranormal guy among us, I suppose, Mr. Paul Rook. I know you're very sceptical of everything you encounter, but is there anything you've actually been concerned about or surprised you?
No, I don't think the paranormal in my experiences have ever been the most scariest experiences I've ever had. I mean, I have experienced things I can't explain, but maybe, I don't know, maybe meeting you, Richard, that was scary.
Oh, right. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I really don't know. There isn't anything that has actually made me scared and, made me never want to go back there ever again.
Any sort of thing you've been intrigued about, or anything you've sort of seen you generally felt you could not explain?
We done an investigation on board a Thames barge, and it was called Reminder, down in Malden, and we actually caught what appeared to be the outline of a little boy on camera, and it, of course, the fireplace and down into the corridor towards the bedrooms, and just vanished. That was quite strange. It was more of a wow moment than a I'm going home. I have since tried booking the boat again, but we never really got the interest to go back there by the members of the public. So, we had to cancel it. But I do hopefully one day want to go back.
Oh, right. And perhaps we're all too shocked to go back.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, Mark, what about you? You must have a story tucked away somewhere.
I've never actually been scared at any of the paranormal things we do. Normally, because if it's like my team, I'm normally holding a camera or some sort of piece of equipment. I'm stuck right into investigating. But the only thing that's ever happened to me personally, and funny enough, Kerry was there, the dance studio, I got scratched whilst I was filming some black orbs that was circling a EM pump. And I thought I'd leaned against something or a piece of wood or something like that had done it. And it was really weird. It felt like a burn. It didn't feel like a scratch. And then people looked at it and they said, you've actually got 3 lines down your back. And I think you took photos of it as well. And we looked at where I had been with the camera and everything. And there was absolutely nothing that could have done it to me. Didn't scare me. It just made me, I was a bit annoyed. How dare you scratch me, but, that was it. I can't explain it. Cannot explain it at all. I'd quite happily go back there, but I cannot explain that one. I've got no idea how it happened.
Then we caught black shadows on the photographs.
Yeah, they were circling the EM pump, weren't they? Yeah, they were circling the pump. And they'd been all the way through the studio.
And you were privy to this then, Kerry, when this happened?
Yeah, it was on an investigation we were on together. And we were in an area that the people had said, people didn't like to go in there. Excuse me. And Mark got scratched. And then when we reviewed the photos afterwards, there's like weird shadows on the photos. But it's one of those where you look at it and you go, they're not like definitive shadow people or something like that. They're a bit weird. I don't know is the answer to the question. I'm not enough. I don't know enough about photography to comment on those photos, but looking at the timeline of the scratching and the photographs when they were took and the shadows, it's very unusual.
Those 2 orbs, funnily enough, they were on pretty much for every set of photos that was taken in each various room with all different cameras. Those 2 black orbs were seen quite a few times. When one of the people there got a sudden pain in her elbow, on one of the photos, one of those orbs had engulfed her elbow. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And then when, as I say, we went downstairs and these orbs were in photos from downstairs. A lot of it I could explain away because there was high EMF coming from a massive electric meter. Right down the end, there was no EMF radiation coming through because I checked. But down at the end where I got scratched, it had actually been turned into toilets. and that was where we put the EM pump on the floor because there'd been reports of something really nasty in there, and it was in there when there was 4 of us in there, 5 of us in there, I think, and that was when I got scratched. And I was holding a camera, not lent against anything, but I checked to make sure that where I'd been standing wasn't any bits of wood sticking out or anything like that, and there wasn't. And when, as I say, when we reviewed the pictures that I'd been taking at the time, you can see these 2 black orbs that had been following us circling the EM pump. I just found it a bit weird.
Yeah, strange. Yeah. What about you, Kerry?
We was in an undisclosed pub, and there was a situation happening. It was a highly emotive situation. We were trying to move a spirit on. I was very unexperienced at the time, working with an experienced medium, and I went into full fight mode, I think is the expression, and followed. It's a very complicated situation. We were in one room, we were trying to move a spirit on, and there was a fight, a spiritual fight, I suppose you would call it, going on. And the person we were trying to move on, another spirit came along and snatched her basically from our grasp. I was working in tandem with another medium, and I followed where I thought the spirit had gone, walked into the room, and this basically spirit stopped me in my tracks, and the other medium came in, tried to take the spirit off of me because I was unexperienced, and basically threw us both across the room, and the experienced medium got hurt excuse me, quite badly on his back, and we had both been thrown across the room. Now, we don't, because of the way the night happened, we don't actually have video footage of this. We have audio. Now, I'm a lot more experienced in investigating as well as spiritual work now, and I still listen to that and think, was that a emotionally driven from the people that were there situation, or was it a spiritual spirit situation? I don't know. I still can't tell you. I know it affected.
I can vouch for you on that one. I was there.
I know that I was incredibly affected by that. I know I would never go back to that particular location again. I know we tried to get other teams to go in to see if they got the same sort of thing that we got, but they didn't. They didn't pick up what we got. I think there was a lot of psychology involved in that. I think there was a lot of, I don't know. I don't know. I know it affected me quite a lot.
Not actually sort of been there or known about this. It's sort of like, to me, it's a very like a emotional driven sort of experience for you both.
For me particularly, because I was very unexperienced, I would definitely say that. This is why I would think a psychological effect probably was taking place there. I know what I experienced. I know what I felt. I know how it affected me. But I also, with hindsight, look at it in a different way to how I looked at it at the time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose sort of, and it's always a bit sort of different when you sort of like review your events yourself in your sort of thoughts and stuff like that, to actually go through and sort of just look at them from the cold light of day, without the emotion attached to it and stuff like that.
As I say, I was very, very inexperienced in paranormal investigating and spiritual work back in the day. This is when I very first started, so this is, going right back at the beginning. But I still listen, because we have the audio of when we were in the room, but we don't have video. And I still listen to it, and I still can't equate it. I know what I experienced. I listened to the audio. I can look at it from a different viewpoint to how I looked at it at the time, but I still can't explain it, if that makes sense. It's a very enigmatic one. I can't, even now, as I say, I look at it, and the medium himself got really hurt to the point we thought he might have to go to hospital and have stitches in his back. So, because we said, did he pull me? Was that driven by him? I know I didn't push him, but did he pull me rather than it being a physical, a spiritual energy burst, as it were? I don't think so, because of the way he was holding me. I don't know, but that's my worst. I think so far that's been my worst experience, or the one that's made me go, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? I need to know more about what I'm doing spiritually.
Can I just say, Akila in the chat room has just said, sounds like a very fueled night, but I can imagine it made you more determined to develop your skills within spiritual work, Kerry.
Oh, no, it did. It definitely did. For one thing, I learned a lot of lessons that night.
I think we all did.
Yeah, we all did. Oh, the whole team learned a lot of lessons that night. I needed to know more about what I was dealing with. I needed to know more about keeping control of my emotions on an investigation. Because I know for a fact I went into fight mode. And I do this when I feel I'm challenged, which is what happened basically. I was in control. I was trying to help move the spirit on. I was totally in control of that. Then when that took out of my grasp, I went, I don't think so, and went into fight mode. And that is the point I lost control.
Yeah.
From that point on, I then cannot tell you logically in my own head. I know what I felt. I know where I was going, but I was in fight mode. I know that.
The rest of us didn't see it because I was in the other room filming. That's why I couldn't get any filming of it, because I just heard the thud and then came running in.
And like I say, we have audio of it, but I'm not going to play it because I get upset listening to it.
No, I wouldn't expect you to play it. I mean, it just sounds like an average Saturday night down the pub for me. Obviously.
I've had a few of those nights too, but it didn't affect me in the way that did.
No, obviously, no. Thanks for sharing that with us, Kerry. That is, because I had sort of heard about this sort of, and it was sort of quite a dramatic experience for you. But thanks for sharing that. That's really good of you. Before we come to Andy, I suppose I best tell you sort of my experiences. I don't actually. Well, I've only been involved in this, and I haven't really sort of been on a lot of paranormal investigations per se. I sort of just read about it and stuff like that. But I find the anticipation is sort of like the scary sort of bit for me, if you can call it scary. It's more like an anxiety. But I'm an anxiety sufferer anyway. It's sort of like going to a location and the build-up and stuff. But once you're actually involved, sort of walking around on the sort of apparatus like the Ouija board, which I've done a couple of sessions of and stuff, I'm usually fine and nothing really phases me at all. But going back, this is more sort of like a ghostly sort of encounter I believe I had quite a few years ago, and it wasn't long after I came back from Australia with my family, and this would have been about 2008. I took my youngest son to Dover Castle in Kent, and we had a lovely day there. And part of Dover Castle, and if you go down the far end, there's a like a cave. Well, it's not a cave system. They're deliberately built tunnels called Hellfire Corner, and they were originally constructed in the Napoleonic times. There was a couple of like large vaults in there where they stored ammunition, cannons and stuff like that, but these have been extended and expanded throughout the years, and especially during World War II they actually expanded quite extensively, and it became the early part of World War II, it became like the Royal Navy's and the Royal Navy's operational centre. And the whole sort of cave system is actually dedicated to the Royal Navy, and particularly it was where they coordinated the evacuation of the troops from Dunkirk in May 1941. That is what it's particularly famous for, and it was all done from this particular command post. And it does actually have a reputation of sort of being haunted, or a lot of activity going on there, whether whether it's sort of, it's because it's underground, because I've been to Kelvin and Hatch on one of Paul's events, and there certainly seems to be something, I feel, with sort of locations that are actually underground. I mean, for some reason, they do seem to generate a lot more sort of energy or atmosphere. But I'm digressing a bit. We went on a guided tour with an English heritage guide, and they were taking us around the cave system, and he was sort of, we were sort of looking at the exhibits and stuff. And at one point, we stopped at the end of a really long gallery, and I was standing at the end of the group with my son, and the guide was at the front, sort of telling a bit more about the story of the evacuation of Dunkirk, etc. And I was just sort of looking down towards the end of the gallery, and there was a door at the far end. Now, this door actually opened, and a gentleman came out dressed in a blue uniform, which I sort of recognised as being a RAF uniform. Just the door opened, he come out, deadly silent. I would have thought I would have heard footsteps from this person or something, because the cave system itself was quite echoey. Came out, shut the door, he turned to his right and just carried on walking into the wall. And I thought, oh. But at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. It's just like he was going about his daily business. He was coming out of an office, turned to his right and just walked and into the wall and vanished, so to speak. But the strange thing was, I did notice whilst this was going on, the actual sort of, and this was in vivid sort of colour, but very vivid colour. And the closest I could describe it is if you watch one of these old 1950s or 1940s Technicolor movies, they have that exaggerated type colour, as opposed to watching a modern sort of TV show. There's no difference. They sort of had this sort of, like the colour was sort of painted on. It was but it was very vivid. And, and at the time I didn't sort of say anything to anyone, and I didn't really consider it much until a couple of years later when I sort of was thinking about it, and I sort of found out a bit more about these experiences that were going on down in the Hellfire Caves, or Hellfire Corner it's called. And that was my sort of one and only experience. Was this a full-blown apparition, or could it have been a projection? Or because, did they have projectors set up in there to try and create sort of people walking around from the time? I don't know, but that is my little story, and I still think of it today, sort of quite fondly actually, and and I sort of call it my ghost story. But yeah, that's about it. And my son was with me. I didn't actually point it out to him. I mean, I didn't really feel the need to. I was just sort of staring down towards the end of a long corridor when this happened.
Andy?
Or stone tape.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge subscriber to the stone tape theory, but I am quite intrigued about, since visiting Kelvedon Hatch, which is like an underground sort of thing, and other sorts of cave systems I've been in, not on a paranormal investigation. I mean, it's going back to your show before. Underground sort of realms do seem to attract some sort of energy, whether they're actually sort of... Because I find Kelvedon Hatch quite interesting, because it's a relatively modern structure. It's only been there, since the 1950s. It's for anyone that's listening, it's a disused nuclear bunker. And we did catch quite an interesting video from there as Paul, and you were actually part of that, weren't you, Mark?
Yeah. I was one of the hosts.
Andy, what's your experience?
Blimey, that's a difficult one. I'm not showing off, but there's been so many events and things I've been involved in and seen. So But by the same token, none of them were really shocked, worried, or frightened. I mean, I've just never has done. But perhaps keeping with the theme of the underground stuff, one of the most unusual was an investigation with Fright Nights of the Hellfire Caves, the actual Hellfire Caves in High Wycombe. There are a series of underground chambers linked together by underground pathways that were actually built, man-made, completely man-made, or tunnelled out by the locals in the employment of, and I forget his name in the 1700s, but basically the reason they were dug was to employ the locals to give them something to do in a period of high unemployment in the 1700s, but they were basically used by the Hellfire Club as a meeting land. I'm just trying to think of the guy's name. It's gone out of my head. It's really annoying. But anyway, the founder of the Hellfire Club, and the caves are there. They are still visible. They're still open to the public. You can pay to go on a guided tour during the daytime. You can now spend up to £5,000 to hire them up till midnight, and that's a ludicrously expensive price. But when they were first available to the public, it was a few £100 for the whole night. And we were very excited about the fact that finally the owners of the Hellfire Caves were allowing private investigations and public investigations to overnight there. The first we went to was as dull as anything. Nothing happened. It was a quiet night. There was very little to spook anybody out. And it was pretty disappointing, actually, because how excited we were about the whole idea of covering the Hellfire Caves. The second one, same, pretty dull, not a lot happened. A few bits and pieces, the odd stone being thrown and an odd noise. But the third one was very, very strange. Average attendance to a Friday night event is 25. It's the maximum we've used to have. There's myself and Martin Jeffrey, who runs the company. We were the two hosts for the night, and we'd go through the various chambers and, say if we were picking anything up, sort of spooky, supernatural, and just describe to the group what we were aware of, and the group would add things themselves. But this particular night started off the same as the others, not a lot happening, but we noticed at one point there was a strange kind of mist that seemed to almost following us around. It would fill the whole section we're in, only up to about a foot high off the ground, and it was very definitely there. It was very strange. And then we started to hear noises. Now, if you've ever been to the caves, you'll know there's nothing in them. They're just large, empty chambers. There's some small stones on the ground that you can walk on, obviously, but there's no, other than some very crappy statues, there's nothing else in there. But the sounds we were hearing were sounded like heavy furniture being dragged around, like low rumbling sounds, things being dragged about. It was always in the next chamber from where we were, and whenever we went into that next chamber, the sound would move on to another chamber. Now, obviously, we know we're the only people down there. There's no one else for bloody miles. There's no way anybody's getting in to interfere with it. And yet we were hearing these noises, and the atmosphere got very heavy, very dark. I mean, dark, sinister, not just dark as in no light. It was sinister feeling to it. It was very unnerving for a lot of people. And say we had 25 at the start. Now, most of the people were regulars who'd been on various events before. By the end of the night, there were only 5 left. Most of the people had either decided to go home because they felt unwell or felt too spooked or just didn't want to stay. I had to physically carry one woman out of there. She'd passed out and just wouldn't come round. And she was maybe not too heavy, but I had to literally carry her out from one chamber right to the main entranceway so she could step outside. As soon as she was outside, she felt absolutely fine. And whenever you left the chambers, people felt absolutely fine. It was just during the time in there it felt very, very strange. And to cap it all, we had one guy with us had an audio meter that would pick up high frequency sound and convert it down to audible sound that you could actually hear. It was basically a bat detector, and you could hear a clicking noise as a bat flew by. When we got into the very final chamber, the deepest within the sections of the caves, there was one small room which had some statue, dummy type things of people dressed up as the Hellfire Club members would have looked. And they're all sort of standing around this table, and there's this monkey that's supposed to have joined them down there. A real monkey is supposed to be down there, that's supposed to haunt the place. The meter started making the most unusual sounds. It was like singing almost. It was kept changing frequency, but it was almost tuneful. It was around the 40 to 50,000 hertz range, so way beyond human hearing. And the guy who had the meter had a little bit of knowledge about sort of sound and audio, and he said the only thing that can create this kind of high-frequency noise is very large machinery and high-frequency vibration. And there's nothing in the area that anything even remotely like that. So what on earth was causing this? He said equipment had been checked previously. It was all fully calibrated and working normally. But this sound was just being picked up in that final chamber. So we thought it was a pretty strange night. As I say, it was probably one of the best I've ever had in terms of odd activity. We never caught anything on camera or on video or anything like that, but we were all aware that its atmosphere just mid-evening changed and became very dark and heavy. And it was rather nice, good fun.
I think you meant Francis Dashwood, wasn't it?
Thank you, yeah.
Yes, good old Wikipedia. It's there when you need it.
Yeah, you did. Have you lost somebody, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Have you lost somebody? I thought
Mark has had to disappear. He's had to drop, I'm afraid. But that's okay. We've still got us guys here. So that's absolutely fine.
I heard the sound as I was going along. I thought, well, I'll frighten someone off.
No. He's got his daughter, Taylor. Shout out to Taylor. She's adjusting a gown that she's got, and he's got to do some sewing.
Oh, Lord.
He's got to try it on. He's got to try it on.
Oh, he says he's got a massive headache, but I actually think he's got to do some sewing.
Yes.
Bless him.
But he's still listening by the sounds of it.
Well, it sounds like he's still having a little listen, definitely.
He's going to do his Marilyn Monroe look in a minute.
I don't think Mark will, but Taylor looks... I have seen Taylor in her outfit and she looks awesome.
Okay.
Very good. To answer Kayla's question, she was saying about extreme EMF possibly. Electromagnetic frequency definitely was something that was causing that, but the problem, we have no idea what. It's just nothing that would produce that kind of noise. You get that kind of thing possibly from underground water flowing, but there isn't anything. There's nothing nearby at all. In the rear section of the cave, now bearing in mind, as I say, they're man-made, they tunnel into the hill, so by the time you get to the back, you're about 100 yards into the hill and about 300 feet beneath the top of the hill, and above it is a graveyard, basically, right at the top above. So it was miles, literally, from anywhere else. The village is nearby, but there's nothing in the local vicinity that would create that high frequency. Now, the thing is with frequencies, low frequency below human hearing can travel for absolutely miles. It's like elephants, they thump on the ground with their feet, and that sound travels miles, and our parents can hear it. Very, very high frequency sound has a very short range to it, so whatever was causing it couldn't have been very far away. But so there's nothing in the immediate vicinity in the actual chambers that would create that sound. So it was coming from somewhere within the earth, but we have absolutely no idea what or why it was there. It's an absolute mystery.
Well, most haunted are actually at the Hellfire Caves tonight.
Oh, they'd be faking stuff like they normally do.
Well, they're on a public. They're not doing a TV programme. They're actually on a public investigation. But there has been...
Just to quickly go back to something we said before, I mean, if you took the question of shocking, literally most shocking was being at the live Most Haunted at Woodchester Mansion. The thing someone ever did was to discover just how badly they fake stuff, just how obvious their fakery is, and how they completely ignore the audience in the advert breaks and the camera's not on. We might not have even been there. They didn't engage with us at all. And so they came back to us when the cameras were back on, but when it was off, they just didn't say anything to us. And you could see stuff was being faked in front of our eyes. That was pretty shocking, a different kind of shocking.
I went to a Most Haunted live at Tatton Park just before they had their long break.
Mm.
Yeah, I've experienced that, and I never want to do it again.
Well, I'll just quickly tell a little story that you might find amusing. I've mentioned it before, but those who haven't heard it. I've been to Woodchester Mansion God knows how many times, and I lost count, and I often talk about the lovely place, but I was there on the very second, only ever investigation, and that included a section that's known as the World War II section, where officers and men were stationed because they used the lakes at Woodchester for rehearsals for the D-Day landings. And what happened was one of the pontoon bridges they created as part of the training exercise had collapsed with a tank on it, and it had fallen into the water and taken several soldiers with it, who subsequently, of course, drowned. Now, people had reported figures in military uniform in the very rear section of Woodchester Mansion, the section that they were using, and people have heard 1940s style music being played in the area. Again, there's no recording facilities there, but it's the only part of the mansion these World War II related hauntings have ever occurred. Now, for whatever reason, the bats that lived in the roof of the building, which are horseshoe bats and very protected, decided to move from the roof to the World War II section. So it was closed off to the public because the bats are protected. No one could go in or anywhere near that area. As I say, the only place these World War II men had ever been picked up by anybody was in that section. And yet, strangely and mysteriously, a most haunted live investigation in Worcester Mansion, Derek Coyle was picking up World War II references and soldiers in the chapel. Now, nobody has ever picked them up in the chapel before, as far as I know, even since. The obvious conclusion you get is they knew about the World War II guys and decided to move them to another part of the building because they couldn't access the part they were actually known to be in. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Also, you could see that the so-called green light of infrared was not green light infrared at all. It was ordinary light. It was an ordinary green light, and with normal cameras, it was all trickery and fakery. But that was just ridiculous. They literally restarted the ghosts because they couldn't get to the section the ghosts were actually in. And from that point onwards, you thought, no, this is all bloody fake. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh,
We were so engrossed, Andy, so engrossed.
Well, all I can say is any television program is about ratings and it's about entertainment, and
Yep.
that's why people tune in. And if it gives people a taste of what people do out in the field and the realms we deal with, you know, when we go out investigating, which is 90% of the time nothing going on, but there's something because it keeps pulling us back, and it has ignited a huge industry, including paranormal radio. Then,
yes.
you know, let's not knock them too much, is where I would go with that. Now,
well, I've always said it is a double-edged sword.
it is a
The
double-edged sword.
The scene meant there was a lot more interest, and of course, a lot more company started to pop up and the opportunity to basically earn a living. But it also created completely unreal expectations of what to expect on a paranormal event. As I say, you can't really call these investigations because they're not really under proper sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's not scientific, not even that. I can't think the word I'm looking for. But they are more events. They're public events which are good fun but shouldn't be taken too seriously. But people come along with all sorts of expectations of what they're going to see and what they're going to experience, and obviously they get rather disappointed when it very rarely ever comes up the way they were expecting. It tends to be much quieter. And when you point it, well, actually, that was one or two things that happened were quite spectacular, quite impressive. And was that it? But on the other hand, you'd have stuff happening and the public don't seem to be that interested. One of the most unusual ones that I ever experienced was, again, good old Worcester Mansion. One of the things that the Ghost Club, who were the first people to ever investigate there, and then we joined them on their second investigation, was this very strange sound that was occasionally heard that sounds for all the world like part of the roof is collapsing, like a rumbling and masonry falling sound. Now, it's been heard, and they heard it that first night. And looked outside, nothing had fallen. Everything was as it should be. Nothing had disappeared, nothing off the roofs or the walls or anything. And it was one of those really strange sounds that I'd love to hear. Now, we were with a group of the public in one of the first floor rooms. It was actually the old bathroom that was never completed. Myself and my friend Rue were standing by the door. He gave me the lift up there, basically, because I don't drive. And we heard it. Heavy rumbling sound, like masonry falling or like things sliding off the roof. What you noticed that was strange was that it was slightly muffled, as if it was somehow like coming from a TV or something. The sound, it didn't seem right. You could hear it, but it didn't seem right. And the interesting thing was, it was quite loud, quite distinct. And we said to the public, the about 6 or 7 people in the bathroom, "Oh, come out in the corridor, have a listen to this." No one moved. So, well, you want to hear weird stuff. This is actually happening now, and we know it's not normal. It's something strange about it. And no one moved. I was just thought, well, what's the point? Why are you here? This is really happening now, and you're just sitting there. I mean, it wasn't a full-blown apparition or, sort of chains and ghosts, whatever they expect. I don't know. But because it didn't seem to fit with that normal kind of what you expect a ghostly experience to be like, it didn't seem interesting. Yeah, again, we checked outside. Nothing had fallen down. There was no damage, nothing. The group on the second floor also heard it, but didn't pay a lot of attention to it. And interestingly, the group on the ground, who would have heard it fall, as in hit the ground, heard nothing. So that was very strange. So it's a double-edged sword. It's created an interest, which is brilliant, but an expectation, which is hard to match.
Paul, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I actually had to escort one of our customers out of a location because what she experienced was too real for her. she was actually moved quite. She was emotional. She was crying her eyes out and all sorts of stuff because there was an actual voice talking to us through the ghost box, and she didn't expect to see that. She was expecting the most haunted stuff and us to fake things, and because it was actually genuinely real and happening right in front of her, we had to take her out because she was upsetting everybody. So it sort of goes to the opposite extreme to what Andy was talking about.
Yeah, I suppose, sort of listening to that account, Paul, you get somebody that comes along, I suppose, that might ask Kayla's question. I suppose she was generally shocked at what sort of transpired, sort of if she was expecting sort of, running around and sort of, screaming and stuff like that, and to actually have it confirmed to you.
Yeah,
because
she experienced it in real life, in real time, for want of a better expression. She knew that what we did wasn't faked in any way, shape or form. So it was actually genuinely happening, and it really did scare her. We took her out of that area, and we got one of our medium people to talk to her and calm her down, give her extra protection, just sort of peace of mind. And she left quite early after that event. That was at Shrewsbury Prison. That one, yeah, it's a good event.
The trouble is with TV is is perspective, and you have to keep firmly in mind that it is television. They're after ratings. They're going to, they're under pressure to perform, and we can be very critical of television, but most people have come into the field because of said television program, one way or the other, and that's kind of part of the reason we're all in it. And
I totally agree with that.
And I can be highly critical. I mean, I watched one the other night, and I was like, oh my goodness. However, it's good entertainment, and isn't that what TV is about? It's good entertainment. You don't want to sit in there. If you filmed a real life investigation, let's be fair, guys, it'd be quite boring.
Absolutely, and I think with the TV shows, it prompts people to be a little bit more interested, and they want to experience that for themselves, and that's why they go on the ghost hunts and things from other companies. But then when they're faced with it for real, it sort of scares them even more.
I'll tell you one quick story that was hilarious. Someone who managed to get themselves hurt on an investigation, on an event. Again, it must have been good old Woodchester. He was a very large, well-built guy who basically freaked out because the door slammed, and he screamed like sorry, ladies, but I screamed like a girl. He was like, "Ah!"
I think we've all had moments like that, Eddie, to be fair.
Hold on. This guy was on leave from the army. He was a Marine. And it scared the Jesus out of himself.
I so need to go to this Woodchester mansion.
Honestly, I have been on to Chris Howley. We interviewed him. He does the Ghost Chasers television program that's been, it's had great reviews. And I have been on to him, and he's very busy. His schedule is incredible at the moment. And I'm trying to sort out a date to get us in there at the Woodchester mansion, because I have to say, everything I've heard about it sounds fascinating.
It does.
He gave me dates a while ago, which I did pass on to a certain Mr. Rook, but never heard back from him.
Ooh.
Oh, here we go. The accusations fly.
Ooh, Paul Rook.
Okay, I don't
going back to the TV thing. I mean, and Andy will be able to identify with this. We're sort of probably a little bit sort of older, and we can remember the days pre Most Haunted, and when sort of investigating or studying the paranormal, you had to do a fair bit of legwork. It was all done in libraries and books you sort of purchased and stuff. And if you ever did get a program on telly, which was rare, but on ghosts or something, and it would usually involve an old guy sitting in a chair by a roaring fire, smoking his pipe, telling ghost stories. That was by far the most you actually got, and then that was closely followed, what would have been in the early 1980s, with probably the groundbreaking sort of series Arthur C. Clarke and His Mysterious World, which sort of started to get the ball rolling.
I remember that.
Yeah, and
that was one thing that was actually revolutionary with Most Haunted, was that they actually were doing stuff in the field. Actually, it wasn't just some old guy just sitting with a pipe telling ghost stories. They were actually out and about doing it. I will just tell you another quickie that you might find interesting. I'll probably mention this before, so it's kind of for the audience listening as well. As I say, the guy I used to do originally these events with, Martin Jeffrey, all those years ago, will help them get off the ground in the first place, because his Fright Nights have been running for a couple of years. 1999 they started, so before Most Haunted, and he was in contact with them. He knew Jason Cole quite well, if you remember, was the first investigator. And they said they were talking about doing this program. Originally the plan was to investigate people's homes. It wasn't going to be big locations. And Martin suggested the idea of doing these big locations that he had access to, and would be happy to put them forward to it. And for Martin's a great bloke, right? He decided he didn't want to be directly involved, ending up Jason Carl doing that kind of parapsychologist role. But it was down to Martin that the program went to the places it went to, rather than people's homes and houses. So, but that is it. It's actually groundbreaking in that respect. And again, Derek Acorah was very unusual, that a medium was prepared to go into the field, as it were, with investigators. So that again was fairly uncommon, because the Ghost Club never used them. It was only ever sit in the dark for 8 hours saying nothing, really, just listening to the odd noise coming out. So that, in that respect, it was absolutely revolutionary what they did, and it did set up. And I do still think their first series was particularly good. I've enjoyed that little half-hour program. So you remember, it wasn't anything too heavy going. It wasn't trying to pretend to be anything too dramatic. It just, because it was very popular at the time, I think it was which network they were on, but they were certainly the most popular show on that network by some margin. So it kind of got bigger and bigger, and they got a bit too big for their own boots, I think. But that's just my opinion.
I have to say, I mean, they've still got a huge following, Most Haunted in particular in the UK. Now, Kayla has said in the chat room, I love her so much, I think TV shows should be just taken with a pinch of salt. I get they are over the top and screams and jump scares. It's no different than going to see a horror movie. It's entertainment, and it serves the purpose it sets out to. And I think she's got a really good point there. And I think when you watch any of these paranormal programs that we do watch, I mean, I was laying on the sofa with my youngest the other day. We was watching Most Haunted. Excuse me. And they were actually at the Ripon Workhouse, which our very own Penny covered the other day. Penny Morgan covered the other day. And I have to say, I was watching it and I was thinking, oh my God, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's just brilliant in its way for what it is. And I go out and investigate and do things. And it's not the way I would do it. Sorry, excuse me. And I'm highly critical of the way they can investigate. However, it is great TV. It is great watching. And I am actually trying to talk to one of the Most Haunted team to come and do an interview, but he's refusing to. But I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep at him. But I am going to keep at him, because I think they have been really influential in the investigation field. Regardless of what we can be really critical of any of the television programs out there. But I kind of don't care. I kind of enjoy still watching them. I want to talk to Derek Acorah. I want to talk to, Kieran O'Keefe, who started there, and Phil Wyman, who started there, even though they've gone on and have become, people in their own right on the paranormal field. I want to talk to them because they were there on the groundbreaking front. They were there at the, the point where the paranormal field changed. Regardless of the motives behind it, it changed the paranormal field. It pushed people forward. It brought it more to the public front. It allowed companies to evolve and become the companies they are. It got people into the field that most probably wouldn't have got into the field if it hadn't have been for them. And I think, regardless of the criticisms I've got for them, I'll always have a soft spot in my little heart for them. I'm not going to lie.
Go for it. No, and what they do very well. And you're not going to sort of run a TV show and think, oh, this is getting really popular, and we best cut it back a bit. We best not make it so. And of course you're not going to do it. And what Most Haunted, and they don't have, and their advertising budget, and I should imagine is minimal, because all they have to do is just put something on YouTube, and then bang,
No, you're wrong. They don't actually. They have actually put a call out. People are downloading it from UK TV, which is free to watch, and putting it on YouTube. They're not actually doing that. That's somebody else doing that, and that's illegal.
Well, yeah, but it still doesn't do them any harm.
It doesn't
does it?
do them any harm. It doesn't do them any harm. However, it isn't the right thing for people to be doing, but it's there. But it's free to watch on UK TV anyway. But, I mean, I'm part of those groups, and, the Most Haunted groups, because it's where I started from. It's where I started watching it, and it ignited my interest. And yes, I remember watching the Arthur C. Clarke's, and I've always had a healthy interest in the unexplained and the paranormal. But that is what really made me go, I want to do that. I want to get out in the field, and I want to do that, and I want to know why that's happening. Regardless of what I saw, whether I thought it was fake or not, that was the key point for me to say, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go. That's what I want to explore. Now, that has led me into areas I never, ever, ever thought I would go to. And I'm sure that has been the case for a lot of people in the paranormal field now, influential people in the paranormal field now. I got my little soapbox there.
Yes.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to slip off for a minute then. No. Yeah. Pears, was it?
I mean, whether it's Most Haunted or Ghost Adventures, Akela, or whether it's, the other ones that are out there. I mean, God, we all love a bit of Zach, but God, he's dramatic. But let's get his shirt off, hey. Let's not going to lie, he's very pretty to look at. Whatever program it is, and we focused on Most Haunted, but, whatever program, or Taps, there's so many different ones out there now. Whatever one it is you watch, if it's got somebody who's ignited and interested into the field, and it's got them working in a different way to the television version of it, it's a positive thing in my view, because it's brought somebody into the field that may not have worked in that way before. I mean, we speak to, as you guys know, we all interview and talk to a lot of people over the space of, the time we've been doing this, and nearly every single one of them has said, I started by watching one of the programs on TV, and I thought, why? Why is that happening? And then they started going out on investigations, and then it ignited their interest more. Then they started talking to other people in the field other than the television side of it, and it ignited an interest, and it brings you, and we've talked about this loads, it takes you into fields that you never ever thought you would look at, like physics and psychology and geology and physiology and tech, and so many different fields it incorporates.
I'd like to put this out there, and sort of perhaps get a general sort of feedback. How do you think television could sort of be used for the paranormal in a constructive way? Any ideas?
I think it already has. I don't think it can get any more constructive than it is already, bringing new people into the field.
Yeah.
That's it, because you can't really. I mean, whatever happens, whatever they're going to do on the show, there's always going to be a paranormal investigator out there going, "Will you fake that? I could do that," which is possible. I don't think they can get any more constructive than bringing new people into the limelight.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't watch any of those programs. Simply, I like the concept of some of the programs and what the programs are about, but I find the people in them just irritate me. One of my staff members, she said to me, did you watch the Shrewsbury Prison Most Haunted? And I was like, no. I watched 13 minutes of it before I had to turn it off because I just felt like smacking someone in the mouth. It was like, I can't watch it anymore. I've got to the stage where I've learned so much and just by them opening their mouths, it just annoys me. It really does, and I just can't abide that at all. So no, I just avoid it completely.
What about you, Andy? And any thoughts of how television could be used to better advantage in the paranormal sort of investigative, or sort of the way, if a TV company came up to you, Andy, and said, well, you're a great guy and you're very knowledgeable and we want you to do a paranormal TV show, and you've got complete jurisdiction on what you do and stuff, and and how would you go about presenting it?
I think I'd like to do a reboot of the Arthur C. Clarke show, is actually go around the world and look at these things, have experts who actually, expert word again, but who know things like sort of psychology, physiology, geology, etc., to have a look at these things and say what they think. Because often a lot of these sort of programs tend to be very kind of insular. They're like-minded people talking to like-minded people. They don't tend to expand them out to the wider community of scientists, if you like. Not asking them to prove or disprove anything, but this is an example of something strange that's occurred, say, in America or whatever. What is your take on this strange, anomalous image that's been captured on camera, that kind of thing. But again, I think we go back to the same point that really does stymie all of it. It is entertainment. It can only be viewed as entertainment. As we know, most of these programs have the rider on them. This is entertainment purposes only, and shouldn't be taken seriously. I think there's nothing more that TV can do, because it will always be the case. It's on TV, therefore it's not real. By the very nature of it, it cannot be real. You can't even show... a live investigation isn't even a live investigation, because it'll have advert breaks in it, so they'll stop showing what's going on. You can have a couple of hours. Now, we all know investigation has been on, that a couple of hours can give you nothing. You just stand around getting cold and bored for a couple of hours. Any program that shows any kind of activity is always going to be truncated, is always going to be cut back and made shorter, because it is TV. So you are only ever going to be able to use it as an entertainment field, if you like. You can't really advance the science, if you like, of the paranormal, because it is, we were discussing not so long ago, it's a difficult field to advance scientifically anyway. It's just pseudoscience at best. So I'd like to do something like a kind of reboot of Arthur C. Clarke show, going around the world looking at very strange mysteries and anomalies that he did in his two series.
A more sort of a documentary approach to the subject.
Sensationalist, because certainly if you turn on any of the documentary channels that show these kinds of programs, they are very sensationalist. A good example is, I love watching Ancient Aliens, the show. It's complete trouble. I love watching it. But it's always the same set of people. It's always very much people within the Ancient Aliens community putting out their theories. They don't speak to anybody wider than just the same kind of talking heads you see every episode. And that, to me, I think there are some strange anomalies around the world. That program's been going on for about 7 or 8 seasons now. So not every single one of them could be just nonsensical rubbish. A lot of them are. But some of them you think is further, more detailed investigation with a broader scientific audience, if you like, having a look at the evidence that's been provided by these examples of strangitude from around the world. But those programs all tend to be either very sensationalist, they're kind of running around with cameras and trying to catch the stuff live, that doesn't mean a thing, or they are very much the same kind of people always talking about the same kind of topics, and the programs just have a different title to them.
Yeah, they show a picture of a pyramid and then cut to someone sitting in a chair talking about it.
Yeah, I'd like to do something that's done a bit more kind of, it might seem a bit dull, but more like Horizon-like, kind of more documentary-based program or series on these things, but I don't suppose it's ever going to happen. It won't be. It falls in a funny gap there, because it's not entertainment as the kind of things that people in the Discovery Channel are entertainment. It's not scientific like things like Horizon try to be. So it's somewhere between the two. So it's kind of, it either fills a gap that exists, or it falls between the two and just disappears. So that's what I'd like to see. But whether it would ever happen, I don't know.
I think one of the best shows around, floating around the paranormal, is Fact or Fiction. I like that program, just simply because they get, they claim they get people sending in these YouTube clips of different things that are going on. Say, for example, I don't know, they might picture a ghost in one of the photographs or video, UFO crashes and things like this, and they would go out and try and recreate that video.
Yes, I've seen that show occasionally. Yeah, and that is
And
a.
I
it's watchable.
like, again, yeah, that's the concept is absolutely fantastic. Whether it's genuine or not, I don't know, but I'd say that's probably one of the best ones there are out there.
I quite like that one.
Yeah, there you go.
They
and
do go to
travel
quite.
around.
They do go to quite lengths, don't they, to try and disprove whatever they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, there was a video, what appeared to be a witch flying across the
I
mountains.
saw that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
knew you was going to say that.
And, and they managed to prove it as a fake.
True.
And I think what they do is quite amazing.
They look at it in a different way to what I suppose everyone sees things as very face value these days.
Yeah.
You do watch programs and it's face value, whereas that program does try and go, right, okay, well, we can recreate this by doing this. There are certain things they've not been able to recreate, and
And
they've
I
left
like
it
that.
open. But
I like that program because they encompass the whole of the paranormal.
I agree.
It's not just ghosts. And I think that works. I like that
I
program.
did particularly like, I've seen a few of them myself, the one they tried to replicate the Los Angeles UFO flak, as it were, during the World War II. Do you remember the photograph?
Yeah.
Lights on it, trying to recreate that one, and they came to the conclusion they couldn't recreate it with all the things they were trying to use, and were left unknown, shall we say. I mean, that's the nice thing as well. They don't necessarily say, well, we think it must be paranormal because we can't accept it. So they leave it as unknown or unverified. And they do seem to be able to debunk some things, and they do it quite successfully. But again, it's still TV, and you do wonder. I mean, there was one particular one that I found quite fascinating. I can't remember all off the top of my head. I want to know a bit more about this particular video footage. And I did look for it online, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Now, I'm not saying they made it up or whatever, but I just couldn't find it. I'm trying to remember what it was of. But I remember thinking, I want to find out more about that. And I could not find it anywhere. And I thought, that's a bit strange. Maybe after the programme had debunked it, it had been taken down, because obviously we see it later than the original transmission. And perhaps the person who put it out in the first place thought, no, I'll take this down now because they completely debunked me. But I couldn't find it, which I thought was a little strange.
Okay. Well, maybe they did take it down after it had been debunked.
Maybe.
Maybe, because that does happen. But then, going back to, I mean, we've talked about, TV programs faking it, and we've talked about a program that tries to debunk. But there are people out there in the field catching things, and because of the nature of the business, if you're not there and you're not on ground zero, as it were, people will not believe it anyway. We've talked about this before. I've heard Class A EVPs from what I would class as a reliable source, but they've had very little acknowledgement, because people go, someone said that. Because you can't prove, because you've not got locked off cameras everywhere, and you haven't got this, and you haven't got that, and you haven't done this, and you haven't done that. And all you've got is the person that was there going, no, I know where every member of my team were. It was a small team, and this is the situation. This was the timeline. This is what happened. But because you weren't there, it's really, really easy to go, because you can't prove all those other factors, we can't take it as paranormal, or we can't take that as unexplained. We have to look at it in a way that's cynical or sceptical.
That is, I should imagine there's a lot of good evidence in the paranormal dustbin, so to speak. So my sort of feeling is, if you do have a bit of evidence, the last thing you should do is put it on social media.
But that is the medium a lot of people use. No, but that's a lot.
Yes,
that is a lot of,
because it will get ripped to shreds.
Well, only if it's if you're putting up, no disrespect to anybody, and we've talked about the orb phenomenon before. If it's something like orbs or something like that, then it's going to get ripped to shreds, because that's had extensive research done to it. It is pretty much said as read that it is dust or insect, and it's been looked at and looked at and looked at, and you can go on any of the ASAP Ghost Club SPR sites and find information on that. However, you also have got people out there who aren't flights of fancy people, that are out there doing it sensibly and in the right way, in the right time, and getting all that base work done. There's a lot of base work that you have to do on investigations if you're going to do it properly, as we all know. That've done that, still managed to capture something, and then it still isn't being taken as credible. And that I find quite frustrating. It's that ripping down of people that I don't particularly like. But people don't help themselves. Sometimes people don't help themselves either.
I can give you a very personal example of exactly what you're talking about there. I mean, you guys have seen my Edinburgh Vaults footage, haven't you? The show that's in that room that Mandy, my wife, recorded. Now, as I say, I know exactly where everybody was that night. I know the one room, the one that went in and out was locked off, and it was actually behind Mandy's. No one could have passed her to get into that room. I know who the rest of them were. Now, I've got members of my family who think it's interesting stuff, and members who think it's complete nonsense. And I basically showed this to a relative of mine. I said, you know me, you know I'm not one for making things up. I don't sort of pull rabbits out of a hat and claim stuff that's not true. This is what we recorded. And his response was, and he kept saying the same thing, I don't know, I wasn't there. And I said, but look, you know me, you've known me for years, you know we're related, you know I don't make stuff up. I know, but I wasn't there. I don't know if it's real or not. I'm saying to you, this is the exact circumstances. And he kept saying, I don't know, I wasn't there. So it's exactly what you're saying. Doesn't matter how good your evidence is, no matter how much you can demonstrate that things were as they appeared to be, rooms locked off, etc., etc., the person you know is a relative in my case, but is a credible person, people are still not going to want to accept it. As I say, it's more of a case of I'd rather not have my worldview altered by this information, so I'm not going to accept it regardless of what you do. And because it's TV, it's always one step removed. And people are always going to say, well, that doesn't prove anything. Anyone could have made that up. It can easily be done with camera trickery, etc., etc. Yeah. So, it'll always be a problem. That's why I often say to people, look, we're never going to prove this to the outside world, or outside of the community, if you like, because there's always going to be the case of people not going to accept it regardless of what you say, to what evidence you produce. And the old Edgar Cayce was the first person who really said this, the old saying of, for the believer, no evidence is necessary, for the skeptic, no evidence is enough. And it is true. We're never going to convince anybody of anything, because it's not scientific, it's not verifiable, it's not provable, it's not repeatable. You can't repeat these things in a laboratory under the what's the word I'm looking for? Theory, if you like. That's not because that's the case. Science is always saying, no, this is not real.
Yeah, this field, despite, there's a lot of people involved in it, but it is sort of Facebook groups and sort of like on an amateur sort of level. I mean, the only way it is actually you will get sort of like a proper study done is if it is done by an institution of some sort and serious money is put into it.
But even then, I still think it will fail, because I think there are so many factors that cause a haunting, if you like, which you can't recreate in a laboratory. And I've said this before, you cannot create exact circumstances for specific hauntings in a laboratory. The only thing you can do is test a psychic. You know what I mean? You can log them up, like rig them up to, brainwave machines and, physiological things. You can do that. But even Derren Brown has proved that those tests can be bypassed in some way, shape or form. I don't know how he does it, but he proved that in one of his programs. And that
same point there, it's TV. It's not proper scientific. But what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to really annoy me now, that word blank. They're not scientific criteria. I'll use that word, but I think you know what I mean. Because the cameras are there, you can never trust anything. You're seeing one person removed, you're looking through somebody else's camera at what they are showing you, what they're allowing you to see. So you can never.
That's true. I don't disagree with that, because obviously Derren Brown is phenomenal in the television programs he does, but it still shows that it is a possibility that you can bypass those abilities. So unless you've got those brain waves and those physiological responses, and you can actually physically show it on machinery, I suppose you want to call it, that somebody is having a physiological reaction and giving information that they couldn't possibly have known in a laboratory situation, nobody is going to take that seriously. I can't sit there and say what I get when I get to a location is maybe something I'd heard when I was a child, and just it's a vague memory recall, a psychological thing. I can't say that. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where it comes from. I just go with it. And that's what a lot of psychics do. They just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I don't know about you, Paul. You're very quiet.
I know I'm asleep. Don't worry about it.
You've worked with a lot of different mediums, though, in your time. What's your take on this?
See, I'm not too convinced by mediums because they don't. Every time a medium's given me a reading, it's always been something different, quite generic and not very accurate. And no medium's ever given me an accurate reading. So, I think, you can, to a point, test them out from your own point of view. So if a medium comes up that doesn't know me and gives me a very accurate reading, then I can go, okay, yeah, you've impressed me. But until that happens, I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I sort of look at it because I think, it's called cold reading, isn't it? It's the sort of term, and I think we all do that naturally. It's quite a natural sort of human thing to do, and we do pick up a lot of people we meet, probably more so than what we actually think we do. When we meet an individual, we do, and that individual does actually radiate a lot of information. Mm-hmm. And if you're particularly sort of trained or sort of more savvy of how this is done, you can pick up on it, and we can all do it.
Absolutely. And I think as well, another medium or a medium type of person that sort of bugs me a little bit is the ones that say, right, okay, I've got this gentleman spirit, he's come to me, and he's sort of drawing me to the left side of the room, right? And the reading's for one of you on the left side. Who can take this man? He was, I don't know, a mechanic. He died suddenly, lack of breath or whatever, And it's sort of, surely if a spirit comes through, it's going to go, right, I'm here for that person there, and stands there tapping him on the shoulder.
No, it doesn't work like that. No, it doesn't work like that.
This is one thing that's always got me, and I do tend to sort of fall on the side of Paul with this when mediums sort of work and stuff. And the information they are gaining from the alleged sort of spirit world and stuff usually isn't very interesting. It's very sort of quite basic stuff.
Yeah,
it depends on the medium. No, it depends on the medium you're seeing. I'm sorry, example, I'm going to defend mediums on this. Right. It depends on the medium.
A prime example, right? Sally Morgan. Right, she's really good at what she does, but I don't believe that she's got any psychic bone in her body at all.
What?
Right? No, I don't. She is just so generic. She says, "Right, I've got this spirit with me. It was murdered, stabbed in the chest. Right, and about 8 people stand up. Well, it's going to be for one of them then, isn't it? Surely if it comes through, it's going to be...
If you've got a stadium full of people... No, Paul. If you've got a stadium full of people, then yes, you probably will get that kind of level of people standing up. But if you're in a small hall on generally a Sunday night, you're not going to have that level of people.
But no, that's right. But why doesn't the spirit... If a spirit's connected to you, say, for example, and you're in a room full of people... Why doesn't the spirit stand behind you and say, this is the one I want to talk to? Why is it, it's someone on the left side, it's just, floating above all of them? Is the spirit static?
No, because the spirit comes to you through your ability, not stands behind somebody and goes, this is the person. Some people get that. Some people have that ability where they see the spirit in front of the person, yeah? But when you're working at that level, it's like a muscle, right? If you're at the gym every single day of your life and you're working the same muscle, some days that muscle is going to work brilliantly and some days that muscle's not going to work so great, yeah? Agreed?
Right.
Sometimes you're going to overstrain that muscle And sometimes you're going to have to rest that muscle, and sometimes you're going to push that muscle, and it's not going to work to the ability it is. That's no different from your ability in psychic world.
But what I was thinking, I mean, the medium does have an advantage when they do shows. I'm not too sure about smaller sort of spiritualist gatherings, but generally the audience are there for it as well. I mean, they're believers as well, so that plays into the medium's ball court, you know. And you're going to have, you know, because you always get certain people, you know, that will attend faith healers because there's obviously, you know,
yeah, don't get me started on them.
Yeah, and you know, because you know, I wouldn't go and see a faith healer because there's, you know, and then you will get a certain group of people who will always attend medium shows and stuff like that, and they will be people who have lost friends and relatives in tragic circumstances and stuff like that. You know, the classic example was after World War One. There was a huge explosion in sort of people consulting mediums and stuff because a lot of people lost loved ones in quite tragic and painful circumstances, and these mediums had a field day. You know, they could just sort of say, "Oh yes, and I can see a muddy trench," and you know.
Yeah, man in
Don't
uniform.
get me wrong, I am not sitting here saying that there are not fake mediums. There are a lot of what we call cold readers, who, like you said before, you pick up on information just because that's what we do as humans. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sitting here saying that at all. But for a true working medium who works with energy in the way that they do, it's not like that. It's different to how people think. You can't. It's a way of working. I can't explain it. I know when I go to a location, I don't always tune in. It's like tuning in a radio. You know, like you spend out. You know, the old radios where you like spent hours like tuning in and trying to get the radio station, and it was sometimes crackly, and you know, sometimes you could tune in and it was perfect. The signal was perfect. It's almost like that. That's the best analogy I can come up with from my experience. I mean, from my experience, but I don't go for readings and I very, very rarely go to clairvoyant evenings because, quite frankly, I never get readings. So I'm like, oh, what's the point? But the one time I needed to know some information, I sat down before I went and I put it out. I can't say I spoke to Spirit. I just put it out there. This is the information I want to know. This is what I'm going for. That's what I want. And that, in all honesty, out of the whole hour's reading, is what I got. Out of that reading. And I came home and I re-listened to the tape, because you get a tape. And I listened to the tape, and there was a lot of reaching when I first walked in the room and sat down. And then she was like, well, I'm getting this and I'm getting that and I'm getting that. And it was very generic, could have applied to most people. And then she came out with some information and I'm like, right, okay, that's fine. And then she came out with another load of generic stuff. And I asked her a couple of questions about something unrelated to what I'd gone in with. And she sort of like hedged the subject. And then time passed. When I listened to that, when I look at the circumstances of that reading, from what I'd said before I went, which she didn't know, to what she read, to what happened in life, was spot on. And that was my boys. That was my 2 kids. What I wanted to know was, can I have children? What children will I have? What will they be? And when will I have them? And that's exactly what I got out of that reading. Now, you can argue from a psychological point, that is, she read my mind, that's what I wanted. Do you know what I mean? From a psychological point, that's what you can argue. Yes, Andy?
You heard me breathe in and then speak. Well, the most common size of family is 2 children, and a 50-50 chance with a boy or girl. So to get 2 boys is not that difficult.
I was going to say, the laws of averages is 2.4, isn't it? 2.4.
However, at the point of where I was in my life, I didn't think I could have children.
Yeah, but it's still hedging your bets. You know, you might have had to go along and discover later on you can't have children and you don't, and you probably just forget about that.
But she didn't know that. She didn't know that I wasn't. I've been trying for 2 years. I was undergoing tests to see if I was compatible, and my husband at the time was compatible.
you're married, you're of a certain age, you'd be interested in having children more than likely. There's a good chance that you can go for 2 boys and that'd be quite correct. It's 25% chance. You wouldn't remember the one that got it wrong, but you remember the one
No,
that
I
got it
would.
right.
That's the difference. I would.
I think it's just a case of that she guessed right.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think she did.
I do.
No, I don't. I don't
even
think that
see
at
it.
all.
You even see it on the TV, right? With the card trick artists out in the street when they do magic tricks.
No.
What they do, when they hold a card up and it's the right card for the person that they've just done the trick to, they'll put that in the programme. But all the ones that said, "Oh no, it's not my card," they get edited out. It's the same sort of scenario, isn't it?
I agree with you. I know what you're saying, but if I hadn't have had that conversation before I went to said medium, if I hadn't have done that, then I would say, yeah, all right, it's 50-50 chance, it's blah-de-blah, and all this. But some of the information she came out with, there was no way she would have known that. And how life has panned out to how she said, there is the chances of that happening were very remote. Very remote. Even to timings, even down to timings. I literally walked in the door. I'm telling you now, I walked in the door and she went, I'm getting 4 years. And she went, now I'm a bugger. I'm an absolute bugger with mediums because I'm a sod for it. Because, working in the field, you know the tricks. I'd taken off all my rings. And to be fair, when I was married, I very rarely wore my rings. So I didn't have marks, like tan marks or anything. And I took off all my rings. I literally walked in the door and I'm very guarded. People who know me, when they initially meet me, they think I'm horrible. And then once they get to know me, they go, oh, she's actually lovely. Because I'm so guarded when people first meet me. As you guys know, you've all met me at one point and thought, oh, God, she's a bit guarded. But when you get to know me, you understand me a bit more. And I didn't know this medium from Adam. Completely no contact with this lady at all. She was a complete unknown quantity. She was going, I'm getting 4 years. I don't know why I'm getting 4 years. She went with the, are you married? Have you been married for 4 years? And I hadn't been. I'd been, with the person for a longer time than that. But when you look at from the reading to when I had my second child, it was 4 years to the day. To the day.
Do you know what?
For 4 years. That's what she asked you.
She was reaching. She did not know.
Yeah, that's you reinterpreting what she said to you, though, because you're saying she
for
told
some reason she got 4 years, and that's the question. Well, that's one of the questions I'd asked.
But she told you married for 4 years. That wasn't the answer. It was something else. So
No, I see your point.
You're reinterpreting what she said to you to fit your narrative of that she was an accurate medium.
But she could have said any time.
She could have done, but she told you something completely irrelevant to the reality of what it actually was. She told you 4 years of marriage. That was completely wrong.
Well, there was a lot more she said. That was just one point. But
Kerry, I don't think you're guarded. The first time I met you nicked 3/4 of my bed.
Now, you've known me for a longer time than that. All right, we'd only spoken. No, guys, seriously. No, guys, seriously. I'm just going to put this out there. Yes, when we first physically met, I nicked 3/4 of your bed. I'm used to a bed on my own. I would just like to point that out to everybody. So when we were, we weren't like that. It wasn't like, it wasn't like that. We were sitting on said bed, and I've actually gone red. Yes, I did make you move over on the bed, but I didn't take 3/4 of the bed. You're so at the back you are. Oh dear. But you'd known me for a long, long time.
Yeah, okay.
You'd known me for at least 2 years.
Oh, I don't know about 2 years, maybe a year and a bit.
All right, okay, a year and a bit. And then we physically met, and we were having a drink we were staying at a hotel, not in the same room, and we went back to Paul's room for a drink. I'm going to explain this because it's making me look awful. We went back to Paul's room for a drink, not just me and him. There was other people in the said room, and Paul was taking up the whole bed, and I thought, I'm not sitting on the floor. I'm going to sit on the bed. And I made him move over, and he's been moaning about that ever since. I'm just going to put that out there. And I did make him move over, and I did take up a tiny, tiny bit of the bed.
Yeah, like most women do.
It wasn't 3/4. It was a tiny bit of the bed.
I was laying on the edge.
Oh, no, you wasn't. Such a liar. No, oh my God. I am so red right now, it's untrue.
And that's the first time when you two met, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I said to him, move over on the bed.
Yeah. You're not trying coming forward, girl, are you?
She ain't, I tell you.
Oh, I know what I like.
Some of the positions I've seen Kerry in, it make you blush, I tell you.
No, honestly, oh my God, you're making me look awful now. Right, we was in a wood. I'm going to put this one out there. I've gone out. This is the first time I've actually physically met. I know, Carla. I mean, God, this is the situation I get myself into. First time I meet Richard in the flesh. The first time I meet Andy in the flesh. Now, I'm not. I like to get involved, right? So we're in this wood, and there's this gate, and I'm over this gate. I'm like Tomb Raider. Hopping over gates and jumping over trees and stuff like this.
And everyone just opened the gate.
And then, and then everybody just comes along and goes, Kel, just open the gate. I'm like, no, it's so much more fun jumping over said gate. No, it's, I just do what I do. For you, it was move over on the bed. For poor old Andy and Richard, I'm jumping over fences and gates for him.
Well, yeah.
In woods in the middle of the night. I mean, come on now.
And we could have halved that trip round the wood if we went through the gate.
That was weird. That was weird that night. I'm telling you now, we need to go back because I want to do it in the day to see. I know where we went. I'm pretty good with direction, believe it or not. You wouldn't believe me if I was on the underground, but in a wood, I'm pretty good with direction. And I know there's no way we would have missed that on the path we were on, and yet we got... I do not snore. I do actually snore. But I did... Not that night, because we were talking. Sorry, Carla's just put... Did she snore, Paul? I do, but not with men. Because I don't do that with men.
When she laughs a lot, she snores.
I snort when I laugh a lot. Oh, see, we're going to have to shut the show down. It's all got a bit wrong.
It's all gone Pete Tong of you, isn't it? Yeah,
I'm now really red. I'm now actually flapping myself because I'm so red. It's terrible. Now, going back to Clapham Wood, when we went to Clapham Wood, when we... Oh, God, I can't explain that. We spent, an hour and a half, 2 hours walking through that wood?
Yeah.
Andy?
With her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then, yes, I know we took a few detours and whatnot, but when we were going back, where we found the hollow, the crater, the path we followed, I know we would have seen it. There's no way... We've got to, I'm telling you now, when we go to Hastings for the day, we're going to take a detour and we're going to do that because in the daytime, because it's on the same way, we're going to do this because I am so convinced there is no way we would have missed it. And you have never found that, Andy. And then when we came out of that hollow, that crater, how quickly did we find our way to the path we were looking for in the first place?
Totally.
And then we found our way back to the car like within 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
What threw me on the night was the fact that there was an extra whole area that's now been fenced off and being denuded of trees. That was completely new. By the way, I've since found out that part of the land has been sold off to private developers, and at the moment the locals are trying to block development work going ahead in the area. That was in the northern part of the woods, so that's why it's been fenced off and electrified, because there's an issue about the ownership of the land and what's going to happen next. But
I see.
no, it was, for all the well, like Blair Witch Project, go around in circles.
It was a little bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're going one direction only, and finally you go around in circles. Yeah, it's very
But I
difficult.
want to go back, and I want to do it in the daytime, because I know which path we took. And in my head, I know exactly which path we took. I could take you there now. I mean, obviously not, because it's now like 20 to midnight. But I could. I know I could do that, and I know exactly where we were, and I know where we were looking at, and I know when we came out of that clearing, it wasn't where we entered, but we exited in the same way, and I know that for a fact. That strikes me as weird that night.
Yeah, definitely odd.
And I want to go back and I want to check it in the daytime, because I want to, like you test a theory, you want to test your memory of that night, or that distancing and that sort of stuff. That's what I want to do, because that is where I go, I can't explain what happened that night. You can't explain what happened that night. Richard can't. Penny can't, who was there as well. And then we go, okay, that's fine. Then we'll do it. We'll go back in the day and we'll have a look at it more logically. And that's the point of investigating.
Indeed.
Anyway,
Cool.
again,
I think
soapbox moment.
soapbox moment, yeah. Well, we've been going now for
Nearly 2 hours.
nearly 2 hours. I think we might run out of time soon. I think I'll wrap up the show from here. Is there anything else anyone wants to say? Or
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think that rounds it up. And yeah, we don't know when the next pop-up show is going to be.
when the next pop-up? No, we're thinking
No.
of using this show perhaps to do some live experiments and stuff like that. I mean, we've got to put our thinking caps on. We've had a few ideas put our way, so just keep your ears to the ground, guys, and these pop-up shows will be announced, but not too much in advance, so...
No, it'll give you a good about 10 minutes, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll give you 10 minutes, so,
Yeah.
so just stay on your toes. And I'd like to thank Akela in the chat room with input and stuff. You're one of our regular guests, so thank you very much. And
I think we need to get her on. I think we need to.
Yes.
We need to get Akela on. Do you reckon?
yeah,
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Join us.
would you be interested in coming on a pop-up show, Akela?
Oh, no, she's just switched off.
Oh, yeah,
She's like, oh no.
we're not that scary.
No,
We
I think we could convince Akela.
Yeah, it's gone all quiet. There's nothing come up yet, but we'll leave you to work on her, Kerry. I mean,
No,
I'll take it.
there is a lag. Don't forget, there's about a 30-second lag.
Possibly. There you go.
Oh, she went possibly. I will talk to you, Akela, and don't worry, you're in good hands. So you can come on and help share your views with us guys. I'm sure one night.
On a Friday night.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure the crazies we bring on a Friday night are probably very specialised.
Brilliant, yeah.
I'm just blaming Mark for that. He's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, that's right.
And that really leads me to say, by all means, join our shows throughout the week, and I'm going to do the show rundown because I always have a go at you lot for not doing it because you always forget, don't you?
We do
on
forget.
Mondays, on Mondays we have Jay and Teresa Lynch with their thoughts of the paranormal from across the USA, so that's always a good show, and be sure to tune in for that. And on Tuesdays we have Paranormal Concept with our very own Paul Rook, and this week he will be interviewing Kevin Kerr. Now,
Yep.
we've got a lot of good expectations for that because Kevin is he's a skeptic, isn't he? But he's very highly regarded by everyone. From what I
Not a
can
skeptic,
gather.
he's a rationalist. That's the
Rationalist.
difference. There's a very big difference.
And he's going to be bringing Bob the Orange.
Oh, we gotta love Bob the Orange.
For the interview with Bob the Orange, and that'll be on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we've got Penny G. Morgan, and she is doing the Ragged School with her haunted histories. And then I'm looking at we haven't got anything down, but I'm sure it'll be Seventh Sanctum on Thursday with the lovely Kerry Ann. And then on Friday we have the Dark Mirror show. Well, Flat Earth. Oh.
No.
That's
We've
just a
got
joke.
we've got Ronald Murphy this week coming on. And we was going to do I can't even say the word.
Chupacabra.
That's the one.
Chupacabra.
We're not going to do that because it's been done recently. So we're going to change topic. We're in discussion.
You're in discussion. And then next week, and then the week after that, we can do it all again.
Don't forget the KTPF show.
Yeah, tomorrow night, the KTPF show, which Andy has downloaded, and I just got to pick it up and load it up. I don't know what it's about. Andy?
Interview a chap called Scotty Roberts, who's a fascinating guy. He's involved with ancient archaeology of Egypt. He's also written on the Nephilim and the Anunnaki and all those other strange creatures, but from more of a kind of pseudoscientific background rather than believing they're kind of reptiles ruling the world. Not that kind of nonsense, but the real history of these kinds of creatures. He's a fascinating guy to talk to, and it's a good interview, so I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, brilliant. I look forward to that. So it only leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us tonight. A bit of an impromptu show, but these will be a feature now on Parasearch Radio. And say good night, guys.
Before you
Good
go,
night.
one important thing that you haven't mentioned that we should say on the show, because you keep saying it, but you haven't explained it. What's changed in the name?
Oh, yes. For those of you that are listening, you may have noticed on our social media pages and stuff, we have actually dropped the UK from the Parasearch name. So from now on, we are Parasearch Radio. All the social media sites have been updated to reflect this, and we're just currently waiting on Andy to edit our jingles. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, this will all come together.
Let's be over this weekend. We're working on that. So.
Oh, good stuff. And until next time, thank you very much for your time, and take care. Goodbye.
You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.